started me on. I'm back on. What's up, y'all? It's Bryon and Fearless back.
Again.
After a little bit of a
Yeah.
gap, we had
Yeah.
some personal stuff going on, but we're back with a trial and error episode, and it's apropos of some things that we got going on, life transitions, new journeys, new adventures, and stuff happening. And so today's episode really is the business of starting over,
Yep.
right? And so, just to catch you guys up, Fearless had a bunch of stuff going on. I was in and out of town, and had a couple of big business opportunities fall into my lap that I had to kind of address. And so, we've missed a couple of weeks here, but we're happy to be back. All right.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And one of the reasons why we chose this topic is because we're both kind of experiencing this in different ways, the business of starting over and what life looks like on the other side um, of that
Thank you,
transition.
Christopher.
Yeah, thanks. And it's really about understanding that just starting over isn't a bad thing. Sometimes it's the cathartic thing. Sometimes it's the right thing for you in your life.
Yeah,
And
sometimes it's very necessary.
yeah, it sometimes you have to walk away from stuff. A lot of times, I tell people, I'm doing the media room by I Sell Words. That's taken a lot of different forms, and I had to make a pivot on what it was
Hmm.
going to look like and what the installation of it and application of it is. And so now I'm more into the coaching side than the consultative side, which means um, my realization has been a lot of times when people want to do the business of content creation and use content creation for business, um, they're all gung-ho about it, they're fired up, they're ready to go, but they haven't built the set of behaviors that are going to make them successful
Hmm.
at said thing.
That foundation, that discipline. Yeah.
And so I'm going into a lot of my behavioral modification bag that I've learned or honed over the years, working with kids and families, and I'm incorporating that into my approach, and I'm stepping out of the consultant role where the consultant can sit there and suggest, and more into the coaching role of go do this and do this and check back. Did you do this? No. Then you need to go do this and check back. And so
Hmm.
it's changing the way that I approach my role in this, because people will ignore suggestions, but they tend to not ignore directives.
Hmm.
So,
One of the things that I've kind of seen too is instead of directing a person on what to
mhm,
do it with them,
mhm,
make sure they got it,
yep,
and then because I think that a lot of the coaching will come off of that they know what to do.
mhm,
You've seen them, you've done it with them. Now I can coach you based on what I know that what I know that you're capable of doing.
yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like I've always looked at it like from that standpoint.
And that's kind of built in. That's where I'm going. It's built into the entire model that I've rebuilt.
Right.
I had to go back and read all the books and all the other stuff that I used to do when designing treatment plans and things along those lines, so that I could make it fit to an adult audience, if that makes sense.
Got you.
So anyway, let's get into this. So um and Fearless, you could disclose what you want to disclose. I'll talk about some of the resets that I've made recently. But
No, I'll talk about my stuff. I finally, after 3 years, closed down my bookstore. I'm very happy, man. That has been a long, contrite, depressing, um, illuminating at times um, situation that I'm happy and I'm lucky for the good, the bad, the indifferent
mhm,
of all of it. If I had to do it again, I would. Um, Despite all the shit that happened,
mhm,
despite um, the disloyalty, the backstabbing, the lying, I, I'd still do it all over again, just for the experience alone.
right. And sometimes the experience is the thing that gives you the knowledge
That's
to move
that
forward to your next
that
chapter.
gives you wisdom.
Right.
You know what I'm
What's going
saying?
on, Sherman?
The knowledge is what happens. The knowledge is what you attain when you're going through the experience.
Yep.
After the experience is over, now you have wisdom.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Some of us do. Some of us do.
well, and so, hey, Sherman, thanks for tuning in. The thing I used to tell people back in my more direct care days was knowledge plus empathy equals understanding, right? And so,
Hmm.
having that knowledge and then having the empathy to be kind to yourself allows you to establish an understanding of why things had to be the way that they were.
I agree, man, because we're so hard on ourselves. Like, even, and again, I say this all the time. I tell him to his face, Christopher, one of the guys on here now. Oh my God, I did not like that man at all.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, I did not. But like now, it's like, now that I've gotten to know him, he's still weird, but
Mhm.
he, it's an understandable weird. Yeah, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's a good dude. So, I mean, so again, man, it's those, it's that relationship, it's that growth, it's that trial and error that you go through
Hmm.
with people. And and some people just, they're going to hate you no matter what, and it's going to be what it is. And
Right.
then there's other people that, if you really sit down and chill and give them a chance, dude, some of these people might really surprise you. So, I've met uh, my friend Yadira,
Hmm.
um, her husband Benny, uh, my friend Matt, Sherry. I've met all these different people because of that store.
Yeah.
Lifelong friends that I consider like close to me.
Yeah.
Even you, I met you
Through the
at the
store.
store. So Diane, met so many different people that have come and that have come to stay because of that. So
Well,
I have no regrets,
well,
and I'm happy to start over.
well, and I had an experience where initially when I left my last corporate job, you know, director residential services, had my name and staff reporting to me and all across all the shifts and sat in all the meetings with all the important people in the state and all the other stuff. When I stepped away from that, first thing I did was I went out and wanted to go acquire a franchise.
Hmm.
And so I started that process as somebody I knew that had a franchise or looking at moving on. They're looking for somebody to sell the franchise to. And so I went in there and sat down and talked to him. And he's like, well, before you, because at the beginning I was ready to just put the money down and transition, jump all in. And so he said, pump the brakes a little bit. Why don't you work here a little bit, do some of the marketing stuff and figure out if you want it. And I sat there and I did that for about maybe 4 to 6 months. And I'm like, man, I fucking hate this. I hate this so much.
You're
I
right,
don't want to do this for the rest of
right.
my life. And there are parts of it that I loved and other parts of it that I didn't like. And so, do I feel bad that I experienced it and said, you know what, I'm not going to do this?
Hmm.
No, I don't, because I needed that experience to show me this is not this is not the vehicle for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we all have our different success vehicles. Some of our success vehicles, for some people, their success vehicle is their career. They love it, and that's going to be the thing that creates the pathway for them to have the life that they want. Other people, it's going to be more creative, self-funded endeavors,
Hmm.
and other people, it's going to be a mix of things. But you have to try it out to learn. This doesn't suit me. And so, yeah, it might have been a painful process at times, but I needed the experience. Needed to get the
Yeah,
experience on me to realize that.
because I read all the time, and um, I'll probably have them rated
Mhm.
based on whether I like them or not or whatever. But so it's not that I don't want a bookstore. I very much do. It's just not in.
Before you have a client base, or before you found a way to initially cover the overhead, And so I'm like, let me scale back my dreams a little bit. I'm still going to implement it the way I want to. But my vision at the end of the day is having a community space where people could come on, record the content they want, whether they're live streamers, whether they're business owners, whether they're podcasters. They walk
Hmm.
in, all the stuff is set up, and they can either do self shoot or hire a technician. And that's my eventual dream of it, where a videographer could say, hey, I need to rent out your space for X amount of money. It's going to take this and blah, 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 blah. I want to have that world.
Hmm.
Um, and that vision is still going to be there sometime. But a co-working space for creatives will be dope. And that's a bigger dream I'm working towards. But right now, that wasn't the vehicle.
Right.
Because immediately we'll come in. Now I have to utilities, rent, blah 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 blah, boom 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 boom
Right.
boom, and I still got to acquire equipment and everything. No, that's not the way to start out a business, and that's just the math side of the business side of things. Because one thing to have the dream, but then you have to have the finances um, to make the thing work.
Yeah.
And
Here's the thing. I would swap out or interchange the word finance for resource.
resources, okay.
I would say resource, and the reason why I would say that is because when I started the bookstore, fine, I had limited finances,
Hmm.
but I had unlimited resources.
Yeah.
And the one thing that my partner shared with me that I will always still remember and thank him for, um, the many lessons that he taught me. But one of them was that books are a hack.
Hmm.
People are always giving books away. And
Hmm.
I would always say, dude, like, what happens if we run out? He said, bro, we ain't gonna never run out. And he was right. You will never run out of books. Ever. That's not going to happen.
Hmm.
The only way that you'll run out of books is if you either A, stop telling people that you want them,
Hmm.
or B, you just don't want them anymore. Those are the only two reasons you run out of books. The rest of that, man, nah. So, and as you guys can see behind me, let me see.
Hmm.
Let me click on my thing. For those of you who can see behind me, like I have a lot of books or whatever. So I have them from every genre. So again, man, and as I was cleaning out the store, I just kept finding more books and finding more, and I kept finding more and finding more. And I had to tell myself, like, bro, you gotta stop because you already barely have enough room now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to get at least so I have one, two, three, four, 6, 7, 8, 10. I have 10 bookshelves downstairs in my basement,
Hmm.
right? That are packed with books, right?
Hmm.
I also have 19 file boxes that are filled with books as well. A lot of them I've read, a lot of them I have not. So I, I'm just saying, I got a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the amount of duplicate books that I get is just crazy.
Well, and I want to jump back to your point about the resources. I think what my
Sure.
issue was, my resources were divided between too many different things. And so I could not focus all my resources into one thing without slowing down stuff on other aspects of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was, where I'm like, I have to, keep this working and keep that working. And I wasn't at a comfortable place where I could definitively put one down for the other one.
Got you.
And so I think that's kind of where it was just kind of a perfect storm of other stuff. I have a space, like I have a place where I can have a studio now. Um, and it's not going to really pull on my resources, right? Like I'm going to have to trade some skills for it, but it's going to work.
Okay.
But that's the thing. I had to scale back. The dream didn't go away. It just mutated into something else.
Hmm.
And
I get
I,
it.
I think oftentimes we get so locked in on execution or a vision of execution. And oftentimes it comes from seeing somebody execute at that high level, not understanding all the other things that had to happen in order for them to do said thing. Um, Example I go to a lot of times, ambiance and lights and plates and all the other stuff, not understanding that all of that stuff is actually a drain and a strain on the person that owns it. But they want to duplicate it. But when they duplicate it, they end up inheriting all the strain and stuff like that. As opposed to the food truck that I've seen, that's probably one of the most successful food trucks I've seen in a while, which is on the hook, off the hook, whatever it's called.
Mhm.
You can get fish and you can get French fries there, fish and chips. That's
I
what you
think
can.
I've been to that. That's
That
the orange or the yellow
Yeah, they're
or whatever.
yellow and
Yeah,
blue.
that's all it is. That's all they sell.
You can get fish and chips,
Yep.
sometimes chowder, and that's what they serve.
That's it. And
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 they
and
make a killing.
and but here's the thing: the reason why they make a killing, and for those of you who are watching this, listen. The biggest problem that I see with people is that if you had to do one thing,
Mhm.
just one thing, what would that one thing be? And that's it. You can add other stuff in later.
Right,
But if you had to get started today, what would it be? So I knew that I had a certain amount of limited funds
right.
and but I needed certain things. I'm like, okay, I need this, I have this, I want this, but I ain't got enough money for that.
Mhm.
So I started asking myself, okay, with the money that you do have, what could you do to get as close to this thing over here as possible?
Right.
And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what do you need? Well, I need bookshelves. Perfect. Go to Amazon. So I found some uh, that I got a great deal on. I think probably 8 or 9 of them or something like that.
Mhm.
And then I was thinking, well, how about if I sell if I buy some ones that I have to put together myself, how much is that going to cost me? Well, it was like 500 and some dollars.
Mhm.
But then these bookshelves from Amazon was like four something. So I'm like, all right, well, just buy these, put them out in the day room, this and the other, and then go thrifting for everything else. And then we just so happened to find a thrift store that was going out of business. And I got so much stuff from them.
Yep.
It was crazy. So much stuff that they gave me for like pennies on the dollar just to get it out.
Right.
So the one thing that I'll tell you guys again is that it's not your it's not the money.
Mhm.
It's how resourceful are you?
Yep.
Have you gone to Craigslist? They're always giving shit away on there. Have you gone to market with Facebook Marketplace?
Right.
People are always willing to will and deal, and they're always giving stuff away on there. So there's things that you can get for your business or whatever you're trying to get, as long as you're resourceful enough to take a different path other than the one you're thinking about.
Well, and that's the other side. It's also flexibility. If you're locked in
Right,
on this specific vision and your vision has no, you don't have a, no, a minimum viable execution layer. Like this is this is the minimum way that I could feel comfortable executing said thing.
right,
You're setting yourself up to fail. And that's why I go back to the restaurant thing, because people have this grand vision of what all their restaurant needs to be. And the thing they don't think is we need a simple menu with a couple of items on it that we can execute really, really well and turn them over really, really fast. And they want to have all the bells and whistles and all the different things and all the different items and stuff like that. I've seen it in food trucks. I've seen it. You go to food truck got this big, huge, long menu of stuff. There's only a certain amount of stuff that you can haul around in that truck and keep it cool within the temperature guidelines and all other stuff. But they end up sabotaging themselves because they don't pick one thing that they're good at, one or two things that and execute at that. And that's why that fish truck is successful. That's why they can have multiple versions of it. It's almost like a chain right now, where they're in all a bunch of states, and there's multiple trucks, and they hire contractors to do it, because there's one thing that they do really, really well and execute on it, and that's what people show up for. Instead of trying to, we're going to do all the seafood, and
Right.
you can get crab legs here, and you can get this, and you can get that. Nope, you get fish and chips. That's what you get. Well, what if I don't? What if I want something else? Well, there's other places you can go.
Okay.
And so,
Right.
and I think oftentimes that's the problem. That's where people end up getting jammed up, because their execution layer, um, they don't really have a minimum deliverable. Like there's not a floor that they're willing to settle on, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And so unless it's this perfect way and it comes out in this perfect way, they don't want to do it. And then they fight too hard to execute in this specific way. And sometimes there are elements that are unforeseen that prevent you from executing exactly the way that you wanted to execute, because you never gave yourself any flexibility to implement the thing. I hope that makes sense.
For sure. Of
And
course.
so I
I was
think
just
go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, and I think that's the barrier specifically for a lot of new business owners. Because when you start a business, you're going to encounter a lot of shit that doesn't go right. There's going to be a ton of things that don't work the way that you want them to work.
Yeah.
Um, and instead of understanding that, they end up getting frustrated and try to force the square peg round hole kind of thing. And unfortunately, they get too caught up and jammed up in the execution in that layer that they never execute on the things that they're good at, and then the business tanks because they're too focused on the things that don't matter. That's all.
Okay.
And so I like the fact that you are ready to, when I restart this bookstore, when I redo the bookstore, I'm gonna try to reiterate this idea. This is the way I'm going to execute it, and I'm gonna leave the
Yeah, for sure.
flexibility.
Yeah. Because I mean, for myself, like I said, I love to read, but one of the things for me was, um, I would, funny enough, I would rather only sell books that I've read.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
and again, some of y'all might be like, dude, that's kind of out there. But again, I read almost everything. So like I don't have like a particular genre. There's certain genres that I like more than others
Hmm.
or whatever. I don't really read a lot of manga stuff. Matter of fact, I don't read any. Um, so like yeah, I mean there's certain books that I do read,
Hmm.
but again, I read them because I love the conversation
Hmm.
that they evoke, right? Um, I love that about it. But all the other shit, I don't really care.
Well, and it's funny enough because Fearless texted me about a book I recommended. He's like excited about the Invisible Gorilla, wasn't it? That
Oh, I read that.
Yeah.
Read that. Oh
and
yeah.
and so I'm saying that because I'm just
No,
letting
I
you
read
know
that. That was good.
that Fearless is
I
being
read that.
100%, like when you give him a book, Fearless will read it. When you come up with a suggestion, and have a whole conversation about it. Um, and so it makes sense that you're going to go off of what you recommend, and you can scale that in any way, shape, or form. You could
Yeah.
do a small brick and mortar. You can keep it all online, where it's just your recommendations, but you have that flexibility to do it. And so sometimes you have to start over just because the thing you started got too complex and too unwieldy. Um,
Right.
and it's not the life that you wanted to lead. You end up becoming a prisoner of your own invention. You're a prisoner of your own
Mm,
success. I've done that where you end up becoming a prisoner of your own success. You feel like you're trapped because you had all this success, but now this thing is morphed into something that you don't necessarily want to
hmm.
sustain.
Correct.
So, all right. So the one of the core questions I have on my notes is, how do you know when it's time? How do you know when it's time to stop trying to save an old version of your life?
Hmm. Okay. So where's that at?
It's on the notes, right above part number 2, and it says, "How do you know when it's time to stop? When it's time to stop trying to save an old version of your life?"
I think it all depends on what you're doing.
Hmm.
You know, because again, like with you, for instance, sometimes you'll love an idea, and then over time, you're not as excited
Yeah.
about that idea. So, is that the case that you move on, or is that the case that you stick it through? So again, I think that it literally all depends. Even with the bookstore, I would have loved to keep going. Actually, take over.
Okay. So the thing I've kind of learned is when I say no longer serves me, there are things that no longer serve me that I still have to do, right? But then there are also things that no longer serve me that are a void. And it's actually taking away from other aspects of my life. And so that's when I make the decision to know when it's time to stop trying to save it. Stop trying to save this version of myself that I was used to, and kind of pivot into something brand new. I think oftentimes when we make the decisions about what we're going to try to persevere through without starting over or reimagining is based on, well, this is what I've always done. This is the habit that I built for myself. And sitting down and looking like just because I do it all the time doesn't mean that it has value or adds value to my world or life. Matter of fact, sometimes you can habituate something that is actually something that is subtracting from your happiness and subtracting from your life, and your vision of how you want things to be. And I think to me, that's kind of when when you have the conversation with yourself. And it's like, okay, do I really need? I don't like this version of me, this version of my normal activities, this version of what I'm involved with, this version of the person that works at this specific place is very unhappy. Why am I trying to save that as opposed to creating a new version of myself? So it's kind of a layered question, but for me, it's when um it manifests for me as this nagging underneath ongoing unhappiness, um where it's this um perpetual, and I've been there, where it ends up being this perpetual unhappiness where um I feel like I'm consumed by said thing. Um and no matter what I do, I always return to the baseline of being unhappy with the thing. And um yeah, I mean, that's how I make that determination. And I think oftentimes we are too attached, for lack of a better word, we're too attached to the version of ourselves that we're used to, and are willing to live in a place where you're not happy or not fulfilled with what you're doing. Um, and it starts impacting other aspects of your life. And so that's the long about answer. So how do I know when it's time to stop save a version? When how do I know when it's time to stop trying to save an old version of my life? When it's just the entire experience with it is genuinely unhappy. And it's just a nagging thing. I feel I don't want to hate all aspects of this thing. Okay. A lot of times when people start talking about starting over, they focus on the practical side. So a lot of times it's money, it's plans, it's next steps, timeliness, and strategy. But there is other layers. We're talking about how starting over could impact your identity, or who you identify as, you know, what how you label yourself. Okay. And a lot of times, we find it where retirees or somebody who's worked in a space for a super long time, to the point where their work ends up becoming part of their identity and how they identify themselves. Um, and you end up asking questions like, who am I if I am no longer doing this? I struggled with that when I left childcare, and family support work. Who am I if I stop being the person that runs the shelter that saves kids? Or who am I if I stop working directly with families? What person, where's Bryon after that? And that's a very real conversation that you have sometimes when you start over. Who am I if I'm not doing the thing that I've been doing for all these years on autopilot?
Hmm.
You know, and you run into weird questions like, What do people expect of the new version of me right now? Um, what do I stake my reputation on? I'm doing something new, vastly different from the life I was experiencing. So how do I build my reputation in this new space? Right. And so these are the questions that come, the more important questions, I guess, to me, or the layer that gets overlooked when people start talking about starting over. Like I said, the money, plans, next steps, timeline, strategy, that's all important. But people don't think about what happens to their identity of who they are.
Hmm.
I've seen retirees experience that, where they may have been with the company long term and then they retire, they lose all sense of identity, and then they end up taking a job just because they need to have something to latch on to.
I mean, right, or they die.
Yeah. And so
Like that happens quite a bit.
yeah, and people end up losing, well, and that's what I'm saying, they end up losing their sense of identity, and all the other things go downhill with it.
Hmm.
And you just start that downhill slope of, now I'm no longer doing things. You start feeling like you're not who you are, and it starts reflecting in other aspects of your life, your health, um, your activity level, and things along those lines. That's why I tell people in. I'm not going to have my traditional retirement. I'm always going to be probably trying to serve, and do business in one way or another as I get older, just because I don't mind the work I do. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't feel like work a lot of times. And I know that's the key component to keep people young and active and things along those lines. So a lot of retirees they stave off hospital bills and death and stuff by keeping themselves active and doing things.
Hmm.
So for you, the identity before was bookstore owner, and so now is back to who's fearless before and after the bookstore, right? And you already have that carved out, like you have
Yeah,
that kind of
oh, for
figured
sure.
out.
Yeah.
But for a lot of our viewers, you may be in that crossroads and not know it, where you're dealing with that lingering unhappiness of your current environment, and as nothing brings you joy out of the thing that you do and report to on a daily basis. And you're
Hmm.
like, I gotta find a different version of me. But
Yeah.
coming with that, there's this weird grief about, if I let go of this thing that I've been doing all this time, who am I after that?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I felt kind of like the same way. If I'm not learning something, then I'm not growing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not growing, you're dying, which we all are. But I'm not one of those individuals that has this saturation point, which people saturation point basically means that you learned everything you need to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't need to know anything else. Like I don't ever want to get to that point. So so I mean, yeah. Um, so reading stuff and um, sitting and thinking about it and talking to other people about just different thoughts and ideas, and whether they're right or wrong is irrelevant.
Right.
Just getting them out and talking to people about it like that works for me.
Yep.
So I don't need a bunch of other things around me. I really don't.
Well, and there's a level, like if you've done, when you've had the job and the career and everything, there's a weird level of validation that comes from your coworkers and things along those lines, that you're doing well in your position, and so people make that part of their identity too. And sometimes it's hard to let go of that. Um, Even the validation of being in the room with other people that are doing the same thing, um,
Hmm.
and choosing to walk away from it. And so that, I mean, there's layers to this, right? Um, but you know, the other side is, it's hard to make that separation when the thing you're doing still kind of works for you a little bit. Like when I ended up leaving uh residential youth care, and walking away, I loved every aspect of that job.
Hmm.
I did. I would get up and it wasn't a burden for me to be there. I loved the talking to the kids and interacting with staff and running the shelter. The thing that drove me out of it was I was completely and utterly burned out. And when I lose the empathy, like for me, getting burnt out exhausted my empathy. And you cannot work with kids. You cannot work with youth care staff when you lack empathy.
Right.
And the thing I told my staff is when you get burned out, either you need to find a way to rejuvenate yourself or you need to step away from this line of work for a little bit of time because the decisions that you make while you're burnt out impact people's lives forever.
Hmm.
And so I've dealt with the burnt out caseworker. I've dealt with the burnt out youth care worker. And typically they do a lot more harm than they do good. Even though they are wanting to help people in their burnout, they end up doing more harm because they'll take shortcuts or they don't sit down and linger with they don't sit down and address a specific problem that somebody brings to them, or they minimize somebody else's experience and it turns out to be a bad interaction. And so
Hmm.
when you lose your pool of empathy, when you completely deplete that and burn yourself out, it's time to go find something else to do for a while,
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
uh,
I agree.
and so that's kind of what it was, but it still worked for me, like I still enjoyed it. But I realized that I did not want to, if I'm going to be in this position, the last thing I want to do is actually do harm to somebody because I'm checked out emotionally, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And faking it wasn't an option for me.
Yeah. I was talking to an associate of mine years ago, and they were talking about like police officers, and he was saying that he said that a lot of the cops that are on the streets need to get off the streets and um, go indoors, and the people that are indoors need to go out. They need to
Mhm.
be swapping that. He said something like every 3 to 6 months
Uh-huh.
because you can get so enamored. You can also become so um, sore, um, nonchalant
Mhm.
and disconnected from people that it's just better to take a break from that because again you see everything the same exact way. It's hard to see things with new eyes,
Right.
whereas if you're in and then you come back out, you see everything totally different.
Well, and I think it's that balance of if you want to do good work, because that's the defining line. Some people don't really care about it.
Right.
Some people like the idea, and this is kind of an aside, but not really. Um, there's a thing in there, and specifically in the law enforcement space, that they're talking about psychological thing where um, the militarization of the police and the mental militarization of it, where they see themselves as the good guys and everybody outside that door as potential enemies. You can't interact with the public like that, but some of them do it on a daily basis. And so what happens is you escalate situations that don't need to be escalated. You lack empathy in situations where you really do need to use your emotional intelligence and empathy. And then you end up in situations like what they have in the LA Sheriff's Department, where they actually have gangs that are sheriffs. They have police gangs where and this is not this if you don't believe me, you can go look it up. Look up the sheriff gangs of LA. Um, where in order to get in the gang, you have to go hurt somebody in the community. And one of the gang rules, one of the gangs that was operating was no black people or women are allowed in this gang. And people were trying to justify it and rationalize it. What makes us more effective? To who?
Hmm.
To yourselves, or are you serving the public? And that's the balance, right? And I think oftentimes that ends up getting lost. Because specifically with jobs where you see horror on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
You know, um, caseworkers see horror on a daily basis. Firefighters see horror. People that do EMS work see horror. Police see horror on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to lose track of your humanity in that role. Um, I advocate for the caseworkers because I think that's the one that always gets overlooked, right?
Right.
When there's a big, huge to do and the police are on the scene or firefighters on the scene and you have kids involved, who else is on the scene standing next to the police and firefighters? Caseworkers, what are we going to do to save these kids?
Hmm.
You know, when a parent gets locked up for abusing their kid, the caseworkers on the scene, right? And they have to go read the entire backlog of abuse and all the other stuff. That's why okay, and this is just me. I have a real sensitivity in media when I see kids being hurt
Hmm.
in comic books, in literature, and all the other stuff. That there's something that it's something that it invokes something in me where I'm like, I want to run away from this. I don't want to see this because I
Hmm.
lived a life where all I saw was kids getting hurt,
Hmm.
and I was there to after they got hurt, how do we restore this kid? And so I don't like media where they play kids getting killed or kids getting hurt as a joke. That turns me off really fast. That's
Hmm.
something I learned, got from case management, being on the front lines of working with kids.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but yeah, I get where you're going with it because I can imagine, law enforcement, you constantly are in that level of interaction with people, and
That heightened awareness. Yeah.
yeah, and you can get too siloed off where you forget that the people you're interacting with are still humans on the end of the day and they're not just
Hmm.
the others. And we talked about it
Right.
with cognitive science and stuff, where the otherizing of people. We talked about that little experiment where they had the two groups of kids at the national park, right? We had the two different camps of kids, and you gave each group an identity around that, and then just kind of turned them loose, and they almost killed each other. you know,
Like,
um,
yeah, like the Lord of the Flies type
yeah,
stuff.
or the prison experiment that we talked about plenty of times,
Mm.
where
Stanford prison experiment.
yeah, that happens. That's a really real thing, guys. And so when you have your group and you get siloed off and it's you versus them, specifically in a working environment, it can get really ugly really fast. All right,
Yeah.
I've ranted about that enough. All right. Let's see. The grief of outgrowing things.
Yeah. That what was that number?
Number
Yeah.
4.
I like that.
Um, what does that mean to
Even
you?
when even when the decision is right, the time that you've invested. I think a lot of this has to do like with relationships.
Uh-huh.
When people are in relationships with each other, the version of yourself that wanted it, the people connected to it, the story that you told yourself about said individual or the event or circumstance, the future you thought that it would actually create. Now that yeah, I think that goes with a lot of relationships that we have with people. It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. But at the same time, like myself, I think that is one of those things that you have to that's gonna happen. Period.
Right.
People people are going to drift apart. You know, it takes work sometimes to stay in there with a person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes work. You know, one of the things I like that was that name Gary Chapman or David, whatever his name. Chapman, the dude who wrote the 5 love languages,
Mm-hmm.
he said that after 5 years, he said, man, once that mystique is gone and you know this person, you you are going to you got to work for that relationship.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just going to be given to you anymore. They were like, you know, if you guys are cheating on a mate, you probably don't have to work as hard as the other people do.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, no, you gotta be put. You have to put some work in.
Right.
So like, no, I totally understand that, man. I get
Well,
it.
well, and then the side of it is where you completely identify, because I can approach it from that career, job, or even friendship standpoint, where you completely identify as that said thing. My first shelter, I loved that job. I loved everything about it. But one day I looked up and I said, I know these kids better than I know my own.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had to walk away from this thing that I built. Like I built it, and I grew it, and I put my stamp on it, my signature on it, and I had to actually decide, make the very hard decision. Like it's time to walk away from this thing that I built and let somebody else steer the ship, because I cannot. These kids are here for a short amount of time. My kids are with me for my life, and so I had to make that decision and flip that switch and move on to go do something else. And I think that was my line. That's where my line came up with. And that's where this kind of, I had to grief. Like I was depressed after leaving my first shelter. I was really sad because the version of myself that was the guy that directed that shelter was a extension of my personality and the culmination of all my work history and experience up until that point. You know, the way we did things, the way staff executed things, a lot of that was stuff I did when I was doing residential care, just at scale. It was part of me, and I had to let go of part of me.
Hmm.
And I still want to drive by my old shelter and see what it's doing. I still care
Yeah.
about my old program, but I had to make that transition. And yeah, there was a layer of grief. And I was happy. I got a promotion. I was in a new job, sitting in a new seat with more responsibilities. I never lost the connection with that side of me. Um, but I had to grow away from it. I had to move on because my kids mattered more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was putting nights and weekends there every single week. I was there and I wasn't here with them.
Hmm.
So yeah.
That makes sense.
And
I,
so
yeah, now I get it. I'm
um
a father myself.
yeah. And so and the example, I mean, like grief just means the thing that you were involved with actually mattered.
Mhm.
We don't grieve things that don't matter to us.
Nope, not at all.
And we try to categorize it and say, why am I grieving this? Because it mattered to you, it was important to you.
Hmm.
And that's okay. The relationship with that person was important to you. That job was important to you. And it's okay to feel that separation from it. Sunk cost. Ooh, this is one. This is a big one. This is a doozy here. Um,
Here's another thing about before we
okay.
go on or whatever. I like what we wrote here when you said maybe I'm being ungrateful, maybe I'm giving up too soon. But grief does not always mean the decision was wrong.
Right.
It just means that it's time to move on. That's it. That's all it is. And of course, you're going to feel away. Man, when I graduated from high school,
Mhm.
I, I was like, damn, you know, I'm done. Like, it's done.
Right.
It's, I'm out. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get to go live.
Well,
And you feel that grief that at first you're happy.
mhm.
But then when the school year starts back up, you're like, now
Well,
what?
I'm like, and that's the crazy
You
part. I'm not nostalgic about my high school life
Mhm.
the same way. That's why I went to one reunion, and I'm like, I saw some people I knew and stuff like that. A lot of my friends weren't there. I had some friends there, but a lot of the people I was cool with weren't there. And I'm
Mhm.
like sitting there like, this is cool. And I'm even talking to one of my homeboys. It's like we're both kind of like, this is cool. I didn't really hang out with a lot of the people that were there, and they were all chummed up, hugging up, and stuff like that. I was like, I didn't really kick it with y'all, and so I'm not necessarily nostalgic for this experience that we're having here right now. I always joke like, man, I'm in a room with a half bunch of drunk, with a bunch of half drunk people whose names I barely remember. This is just like ninth grade.
Mhm.
But that's kind of what it was. College is a different thing. I am nostalgic for my college experience because there were some things that were really super important to me in college, working in the radio
Right.
station, and the friends I have in there, I'm still friends with till this day. I
Mhm.
loved that. That was a defining moment, defining part of who I was. in college. I'm nostalgic for that. High school reunions, not so much. It
Yeah,
wasn't
I'm
the
not
greatest
good on
time.
that.
It wasn't the greatest time for me. Um,
Right.
Freshman year absolutely was horrible. Sophomore year was horrible about halfway, and then it got a lot better. And then I barely remember my junior and senior year. Um, but
It was Job Corps for me.
yeah,
It wasn't high school. It was Job Corps.
right,
Like that, I still have friends. When I see them, it's hugs and all kinds of stuff. People from high school, I barely remember them.
right. And that's what I'm saying. And so, like Chris said, the challenge is people like to be comfortable, no job recession is proof, but in reality, hate the job and the kids suffer for it. Yeah. So going back to the residential care side of things, bro, that's really what it was. I used to tell people like, we don't get kids are like, you're just in this for the check. I am because this check ain't cutting it to put up with your
Right.
amount. There has to be something else of why I'm here to get cussed out by
Hmm.
you on a daily basis. You think we're here because we're getting paid for it? We're getting paid this enormous amount, but some staff actually were because they didn't have anywhere else to be. They didn't have any
Right.
other opportunities. And so for them, they were just showing up and clocking in. For me, I had other things I could be doing. And so I do think that that's kind of where it breaks down. And the kids
Okay.
suffer when somebody just calls and phones it in every single day.
Hmm.
All right. And so, yeah, the grief means that things matter. The sunk cost trap. This is what costs people at the casino. This is where
Yeah,
somebody hit.
people saying things because they have already invested so much. Again, going into a relationship, man. You know what I'm saying? Time spent, money spent, public commitment. That's when you guys are taking pictures together. Y'all done been on vacations, emotional attachment, fear of looking inconsistent. It says that the sunk cost trap says, I have put in way too much for this to stop now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the better question is, how much more am I willing to lose trying to protect what I've already spent?
Yep.
That is, and I like what you put here. That question changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, dude, like there was a time when I would have spent every red cent I had on my bookstore. And then it came to a point where I was like, I will never spend anything else
Yeah.
on this. Like, no, no, thank you. Because if you're not being matched at what you do, well, why? Why keep, bless you, like,
Thank you.
why keep going through something that is beyond, what's the word I'm looking for? Starts with an R. Hear it, see it. Um, I don't want to say, it's, something with the R. What is that?
I don't
It
know.
doesn't matter. Anyway, um, something that's kind of reprehensible, I guess, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But no, I'm just saying, like, dude, that shit sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it truly does. Like, all the stuff that you done spent, the time that you, like, being there from, I remember I would go to the store at 7 in the morning and I wouldn't leave until like 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
At night, having stuff ordered, being there like the whole entire day. Like, oh my God, like that's where I was
Mm-hmm.
even months before we opened.
Right.
And the landlords was like, man, we saw your car there morning, noon, and night. And your car was the only car that we would see morning, noon, and night.
Right.
You know? So, I mean, man, that, ugh,
Well,
yeah,
sunk cost built Las Vegas. Like sunk cost is the reason why Las Vegas exists.
is it?
Well, look at it like this:
Explain.
the concept of throwing good money after bad money. I got to win. I already put this money in. I have to win it back, and I got to win it back.
Oh,
I got to win it back the same way I lost it. And oftentimes that's the trap a lot of people get into is I have to win back the stuff that this enterprise took from me by doing more in this enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
I have to win back my money the same way I lost my money. I have to win back my time investment the same way I lost it. I have to win back my emotional investment the same way I lost it, as
Yeah.
opposed to finding something else. And so you end up digging this hole, and the only way you figure you can get out of the hole is to dig deeper. And that never gets you out of the hole. You're just in a
Right.
deeper hole. And the only way to actually escape the hole is to stop digging and climb out and start digging something else if you want to dig a new hole. But the reality is, it's physically impossible for you to dig all the way through the planet and come out on the other side. And so
Yeah.
how far do you want to sink in this?
Hmm.
And so when I say sunk cost built Las Vegas, that's what it is. People win a huge amount of money, or they lose a bunch of money and say, well, shoot, I lost my $100. I'm going to stay until I win my $100 back. And then
Oh.
that $100 back ends up becoming $500 they done spent. And they're like, well, I got my $100 back, but now you down five.
Yeah.
So did you really get your $100 back?
Did you really get it back? Right.
Or the other side is somebody wins big, loses half of it, and says, well, I just need to get back up to half. And then they end up losing the whole thing. That's how Las Vegas was built.
That's yeah.
The concept of intermittent reinforcement. I could talk about a lot about it. I've written chapters on it. And I've written chapters on it. I've taught it.
For what now?
Intermittent reinforcement.
Okay.
It's one of those things. It's a reinforcement schedule where you don't get your positive reinforcement every single attempt, but
Yeah.
you get it enough to keep you going. That's the slot machine. Slot
Okay.
machine that pays out. You know, spent $12 in the slot machine, it pays out $6, and you're like, well, I'm up. And so all I gotta do is just keep going. So that's the sunk cost trap. And it happens in relationships, it happens in
Yeah.
business, it happens with your job. I put in this
Mhm.
many years. Man, why don't you quit and go somewhere else? But I put in all this time and all this effort, man. I can't leave right now. But you hate this. And you have other opportunities at play. No, man, I put in all this time. It's got to mean something. It does mean something.
Mm-hmm.
If it means something to you because you don't want to let it go, that's important. But that doesn't mean you have to continue to make yourself suffer every single day.
Correct.
So,
Correct. I agree. Let's move to this one, and we'll stop on number 6 because we got 12 of these. But I
okay.
really wanted to end on this one. When loyalty becomes self-betrayal.
Ooh.
Sometimes people confuse loyalty with endurance. They think that staying strong, that staying means that they are strong.
Mm,
They think that walking away means that they're weak. But loyalty can become self-betrayal when you are staying attached to something that keeps draining you,
mm-hmm.
right? So this is business, jobs, friendships, creative projects, community, old goals, like relationships in general, not just friendships, but relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships, like in general, like that is that is a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like in general,
Well, when your loyalty is, when you're comfortable with, not even comfortable, but when your loyalty actually starts to harm you and do real
yeah,
harm to you, um, because you're so loyal to a point you've identified, and this ties back to earlier. You've labeled yourself a loyal person, and you're like, well, I'm loyal, and I'm going to endure this because I'm
yeah,
loyal to said person. Um,
yep,
or I'm loyal to this project. I can't give up this project. I put my heart and soul into the said thing, and so I'm going to allow it to continue to hurt me. Um, and you
correct.
and the question is, what does this who is this turning me into?
Hmm.
That's why I had to
Okay,
walk away. That's why I had to walk away when I was burnt out. Like, who is my burnout
yeah, for
turning me
sure.
into? Turning me into a scornful, resentful, angry person, and that's not who I normally am. And so that's where you start. That's where you start. That's where you make that. That's where you make that cut and say, this is not who I want to be. This is shifting me into a person that I don't want to be. Now, sometimes it can shift you into a person that you want to be, and that's where you continue to deal. Okay, this is bringing out the best in me. I like this. But when it starts turning you into somebody you don't want to be, that's a sign. So,
Got it.
all right, we got through it, Fearless. Do you have anything else?
No, actually, I don't. Today is my friend Yadi's birthday. Yadi, come over here, please. Say hello to the people.
Hi.
They can't see you. Say hi.
Hey,
Oh, hi.
hey, happy birthday.
Dad, he said happy birthday.
I read his lips.
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
did.
Thank you so much.
Yep. So yeah, we're about to take Yadi out to lunch somewhere. So
Okay.
yeah, that's why we're stopping
Yep.
or whatever. So want to go get some lunch.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. We'll probably pick it up at number 7. I'll put that on the
Yeah, for sure.
So, anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for tuning in to Trial and Error.
Yeah,
Thanks
for sure, man. Thank you guys.
Thanks for sticking with us with our schedule being all over the place. We're back now. So we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bye, deuces.